realize, but the conversation that we have can in some way help someone, or just in general, maybe inspire someone. All the words of wisdom that you people will bring in will definitely inspire people. Okay, so last time Tracy and Greg weren't there.
No,
So okay, so little bit of a background. Do I need to give you a little bit of a background as to what happened, or were you able to watch the recording?
no, I haven't watched the recording.
Perfect. That's a good thing because these recordings are not to be watched. Okay, so basically what happened was, which is the first thing is the introduction to the World Mediation Circle. A little brief I've put up on my website, that is mediatorvikram.com. And I think, of course, Greg will definitely relate to it. We've had a wonderful conversation in that symposium of mine, Heart, Soul, Spirituality, and Mediation. So what I'll do is give me a minute to just put it up as to what that little concept, and then I mean, develop the concept, will develop, we'll keep refining it. But this is where you find the information, mediatorvikram.com. And then you have a little section on the World Mediation Circle, one section of what is happening in this year, date-wise, and then one section on the mediation circles which have been launched. Then you have a section on the all the events that Ken has participated in, because I really feel those words of wisdom available to everyone, I think is something that if they find time. The only issue that has happened is that now this, I think there are more than 700 videos out there. So expecting you people to watch all of them, I think is a little too much, because it'll take you maybe 2 years to do that. But at least go through it. Whatever you feel is relevant, you can always have a look. And this is different years, what's happened in different years. So that's what you find here. So what is the World Mediation Circle? A worldwide web of mediation circles. And I'll take you through the why it's a web, a little definition of the mediation, because at least today in the Singapore Convention, we have a definition, but we missed out on three important words in that definition, which I think obviously are important for mediation, which is the voluntary, informal, and the trusted person. So I put that out there. So mediation circles to bring a moral values, principles, and ethics-based humanistic approach to dispute resolution, where heart, soul, spirituality play an important role. So like I said, Greg will definitely relate to this. And then, of course, helping people resolving disputes, but also attempt to heal and strengthen relationships. But that's the first thing, that you help people resolve disputes. But what we're doing is we're trying to create a community within a community of people who have that mindset to come together. And then these people have a role to play. So Felicity, I'm just taking them through what happened last time because Greg and Tracy weren't there. So just a little brief. I won't take too much time. So I'll just so that at least they have a broad idea. So then this particular community, what are we looking at? Now you have a safe space for conversations, dialogue, collaboration, and consensus building without debates, activism, or advocacy. So it's a different approach to how you resolve issues, which is issues, local issues, national issues, global issues, because I feel these spaces are not being created. And why they're not being created, maybe you people will give your thoughts. My concept is there is no money made by people, because divide and rule, which is what the next step for us, redefine politics, where you move away from the colonial divide and rule towards consensus building with mediators as leaders. So that's those spaces maybe doesn't serve people's purpose. Like what we are doing today, does it serve anyone's purpose that we'll have a good conversation? Maybe not. So mediation circles in schools, colleges, organizations, communities, and then issue based, like we have the global climate change mediation circle, the Israel Palestine mediation circle, things like that. First thing is bring in good human beings, and then good things will happen there. So in those good human beings, you'll find people who have the mediator mindset. So no qualification, training, certification required, just the mindset. Then you have the peacemakers who bring people together, because that's an important skill in relation to dispute resolution. Someone has to reach out, bring them together. And if they can resolve things on their own, we're happy. They don't have to go for mediation. We were happy doing that. But if they can't, then you have those mediators which have been identified in those communities itself. So we are going out and telling people to ask that question: who do you know in your school, college, community, organization, family, who helps people resolve their fights, disagreements, misunderstandings. We don't even have to use the word disputes and conflicts if you don't have to. Keep it as simple as possible. And it's not the usage of the word mediation or mediator. The point is, does someone help you resolve disputes? What do they do? What is the process? What did they do? They'll tell you everything about mediation without using the word mediation. So that's all we want. We want them to connect with the process. It's not the word which is important to us. And then everyone who has that mindset are participants, because we need people with that mindset. And this on a local level, of course, that little community. Now, then we have the International Commercial Mediation Circle. So I'm giving you that side of it. So in that, we want everyone to come in. I'm saying lawyers are not your first port of call, but we also need lawyers who have that mindset, who, definitely don't have the adversarial mindset, who come into that community, and they will be required for mediations to be part of the mediation, as in the sense assisting people, or also could help in settlement agreements. They'll have a role to play. So we need all those people also. So both extremes we have. And then, of course, link to fill the form. None of you have filled the form, but please do it. So there is a database connected. So, broad idea. Yes, Felicity. Felicity is the best person to talk about it, actually. She's so if you want to tell everyone about it, please do. What do you think, Felicity? Any other thoughts that you have? A little unmuting would help.
There we go. Hi, everybody. I'm really excited about the mediation circles. I think it's just such a great opportunity for people who are often isolated in our work to be able to come together and have a forum where we can have conversations with people that we know want to have the same conversations. And I just really embrace that opportunity, and thank you all for coming tonight.
But first,
very
tell
exciting.
me, do people know each other? Please.
Not really. No. Does anyone know?
Each one has to say, does anyone know me, kind of thing.
Yeah.
We've all been having chats on our LinkedIn.
Yes.
Yes. Hello, Josephine. Hello.
It's true. It's true what Felicity said. Our work is quite isolating. Even if I work for 39 years with CJC, it's quite isolating because we just get our brief. We go to the courthouse if it's a court mandated. Otherwise, it's telephone assisted mediation, and then we send our report and debrief. It is. And seeing this and in other Zoom as trainings, that's just about it. Community Justice Center has stopped paying for our Christmas lunch and other stuff for training. So this is a welcome, and it's refreshing because there's no politics to it. Yeah.
But also
I'd love to know about Tracy.
But the only thing is that please consider this my living room. So you're in my living room. We'll take it like that. Someone comes in, we'll greet them like we would walks into a living room. So we'll keep that atmosphere. That's what I've always said. I even started a series called In My Living Room. So if I have a conversation with someone, I record it and I can upload it. I will only be in 3 in that, but living room conversations. So all of them are like that. So yes, Tracy, Josephine wants to get to know you.
Wow, good afternoon. So I am based in the northwest of WA, Western Australia, in a mining town. And so I live in quite a remote location. I've now recently moved into a caravan full time, so I can actually travel to the more remote locations. And yeah, so, I can be extremely remote and isolated from other mediators and other people. So, I'm always looking for creative ways of connecting with others and sharing experiences and things. Yeah. So, I'm just about forever learning and reflecting on, on my own practice, I suppose. So
But we have
Yes.
someone who's walked into the living room whom we haven't greeted. Hi, Leonie, if I'm pronouncing it correctly.
Sorry, hi everyone. Sorry I'm a bit late.
No issue. Everyone was just getting to know each other. So that's what was happening. Josephine has told us a little bit about herself, which is she's been practicing for the last 39 years. And that's one part we've got to know. Tracy is isolated because she's on in a caravan, on a camper, and she's roaming around Australia, I'm assuming. And I'm going to pick up one camper and I'm going to go out, create mediation circles around the world. So Tracy, please share those experiences with me. So who wants to get to know whom now? Tracy, whom do you want to get to know first? That's something we'll go like that.
I would like to get to know Felicity, because Felicity was, I believe, the linkage for me being here. She probably doesn't realize that.
No, I don't.
For memory, I think, did you reach out to Peter Hansen and ask him to post something on? So I'm on a forum, you know, that he runs, and he had that link on there, and I thought, oh, this sounds interesting. To be honest, I didn't really know anything about it, but it seemed like you know, about connections and that. So yeah, being being so remote, yeah, I just thought, well, I'm going to jump on and see what's happening. So
that's exciting. Thanks, Tracy. That's the peer community practice group, is that on Facebook, that Peter has set up for FDRPs, which is just fantastic, because I'm also an FDRP, and you know, isolation is the key word, isn't it? There's very hard to find groups where we can come together and discuss things and learn from each other. So when I heard about Peter's group, I was very excited and thrilled that you found us through that Facebook group. That's fantastic. So a little bit about me. I've spent 25 odd years in education and arts therapy, working with children, and pre-prep right through to third year university I've taught. And I have spent a lot of time educatively, but also therapeutically as a therapist, working with children who are the collateral damage, if you like, from divorce. And so over time, 25 odd years, I used to say, you know, I think I've heard almost every divorce story, because there is, whilst every story has its unique qualities, there are elements, of course, where the children, there are patterns to what they say, and there are patterns of consequences and reactions, and that are patterned across the conundrum that it is. And so after a while, I thought, you know, I would really like to move into the mediation space and take that experience of having worked with children and hearing actually from children for over 20 years into the mediation room where those decisions were being made. And that's what I've done. So I'm you know, I've transitioned into this work, the majority of my career being in other industries, but I'm excited about it, and I'm very passionate about it, and I'm keen to see where it goes from here.
The one thing that came up was that everyone was looking at, in some way, developing a reflective practice circle.
Yes.
Which is what Felicity also told me, that let's launch that. So we're definitely launching that. I did launch an international reflective practice circle, and then every country we'll set that up, and then down to the local level. I mean, at every point of time, people need to share their experiences, learn from each other. So we're going to do that. I didn't announce it, Felicity, because I thought we'll discuss it here. Because I did want, there is a person who's, I'm not naming the person, but there is a person who I did want involved in it, but he's quite internationally, he's been working on reflective practice. But what really came out was that he has an institute, and he was just looking for people from the World Mediation Circle to take up some course in that institute, which is not what I do. For me, it is about everyone benefiting from the work I do. That's why I put it all out on YouTube. So I did ask that, how does everyone benefit? Are they going to come as an observers, or are we going to record it? That was not going to happen. So I said that few people who take up the course over the year won't serve the purpose of everyone here. So that's why that association really did not go forward. And I said, why don't you come be part of reflective practice groups that we can create, or circles that I call them. But they said, no, I'm doing it on my own kind of thing. So it didn't work out. So I did want that to happen, Felicity, but it didn't work out. And which you could hear in that recording also of that particular session. So that's why we will definitely set this up. And I'm sure each of you will take it up. I mean, in terms of reflective practice, each of you, I'm sure, experienced to take it forward. So Greg, you are going to also be involved because definitely you have the expertise. So the first reflective practice circle, the Australia Reflective Practice Circle, would you be taking the kind of the lead or whatever?
I'm happy to be part of it, Vikram. So yeah, certainly.
And then people want to get to know you also, Greg.
Well, thanks, Vikram. Well, I live in the Adelaide Hills in South Australia. I did have a legal practice for 14 years in northern New South Wales, just near Byron Bay, and I sold it 28 years ago to be full-time in this sort of work. So yes, I'm done a variety of work. Did a lot of family law early on, but more different sort of work over the years, some arbitration work, and at the moment I'm just doing some work in the Indigenous community, mediating between Indigenous groups. That's currently at the moment. So yeah, that's my background. Retired lawyer.
Retired, we don't let you retire. Okay, retired lawyer maybe, but not retired. We need you, your expertise and everything with us. But there is a World Indigenous Peoples Mediation Circle that I launched. We'll also then launch the Australia Indigenous Peoples Mediation Circle. Lots of work to happen in Australia on that. So that's what I said. We'll discuss the different circles that we have to launch, and then whoever's wants to work in that area, which is what I did in some messaging with Greg. I had told him, please, we need you involved. But he also has, of course, other things to do. But yes, Greg, we need you. It's as simple as that. We need your expertise. So David was the first person who came in, and now he's almost the last person to tell us about himself. Sorry, David, you should have been the first one to tell us about yourself.
Okay, thank you. I was a GP in what these days is called integrated medicine, or for many others, it would have been called complementary medicine or alternative medicine, which is a very person-centered style of medicine, because you're dealing with just one person with multiple problems that they don't fit in with their society, or everyone hates their guts because they're always moaning, groaning, or miserable, or depressed, or not getting well. And I spent a long time doing that, and a long time with each person, because you had to be patient as well as patient-centered, to listen to hear, to be able to tease out the bits and pieces, and to ask the question, what really is happening here? Why are you unwell, and what is going on? Rather than giving them a label and saying, well, that's it, we can't do any more. So when I retired, I got bored. And after 12 months, put myself through a master's in health management, and did that in 12 months instead of 2 years, with the idea of coming back and telling the government how to run the health department. But by the time I came back, we were in the middle of COVID, and I was over 70 and therefore about to die, because if you may remember that anyone over 70 was unemployable and likely to die. Well, I didn't. But in looking around, I decided to take up mediation, and quickly saw that I was quite disappointed with the teaching, the training, and the concepts that were taught within Australia about mediation and about mediators. And I began writing monthly articles, well researched and well referenced, and still do, via Resolution Institute monthly magazine, getting inside the heads of mediators and promoting concepts and ideas in philosophy, in psychology, in self-development, and in patience and patient and presence, and all those sorts of things, to get mediators to do more than just mediate, to actually be and sort themselves out first, and be as well as they possibly could, such that they could be a good mediator. And that's really where I've come from.
Interesting. But David, what in terms of philosophy that you said, I did organize a symposium on philosophy and mediation. And what came out of that was that mediators are philosophers in practice, and mediation is philosophy in practice. There was a definition which Andrea, who is in Ireland, she had put up in her session. And that's what
Yeah,
came out.
I could agree with that. I'm very much my two favourite philosophers, other than Greg Rooney, are Aristotle and Paul Ricoeur. And Aristotle was very much about becoming a good person with the right virtues that would enable them to be able to be the right person with the right discerning skills to be able to use practical wisdom and common sense and nous to come out with something. And obviously wrapped in there was my other favourite, which is the virtue of compassion, which is about having the cognitive ability to work out what is happening within someone, and being able to then do something about it, not just get inside someone's head and bring out all their emotions and feelings, but to actually come out with a practical plan about what could be done with them. And Paul Ricoeur, I like the French philosopher because of his concept of self and self as another, that we have a core self, that we don't share everything with anyone, but we have little avatars that we send out, which is the self as another person that is given the information, the ideas and the postures and the characteristics of whatever that contact was going to be. And they then, in so doing that, became a mediator or became a bus driver or whatnot. And referred back to the core self, what had happening, and with the view that the core self could be developed or could block those things. So that became very useful. And then doing a lot of psychology, particularly in the early ages of we talk about the 70s now, things like transactional analysis and Gestalt. And I particularly like Gestalt because of its concept of working in the now. So a lot of the time during my mediations, I will be, after listening to people, I would say, well, that was then, this is now. What are you prepared to do now to move on, to see what can you do, what will you do to move on? So that's part of my P's in it, the psychology and the philosophy and the presence, which is the persona of the mediator, but also the present, which is the now.
But in Greg Rooney's session, which you can search Mediator Vikram and write Greg Rooney on YouTube, and you'll find that he says mediation is the mediator. Or that's something like that, Greg, that you said. But let's get Leonie in, and we'll just Leonie, you came in last, so you have to wait a little bit. That's the only little thing.
That's all right. I've been listening intently and thinking, hey, I might have to own up to imposter syndrome here. I'm an unretired lawyer, and I'm in northern New South Wales, but in from the coast, Greg, so I'm in Tamworth. I've been a mediator alongside being a lawyer for the last close to 20 odd years, and last year decided to do the FDRP course as some further education, and with a view to, I guess, easing my practice away from the full-on litigation routine and into something that I perceive to be a little bit more orderly in terms of moving more to mediations that can be contained within a time frame and don't involve sitting up all night drafting affidavits. So, but I'm interested in the concept of reflective practice, and I know very little about it, so I'm here to learn. And like Tracy, it was the notice that Peter Hansen put up that Felicity had asked to be posted that's drawn me here tonight. So,
oh, great.
So I think the reflective practice circle seems to be the first one that needs to be done. We'll do that, and then we'll have a gathering of that circle separately. We can do that. But what I was saying about Greg was that mediation is the mediator. So all these values, everything that come in, then that becomes the mediation. Yes, Greg?
Yes, I'm sort of, while the mediator is mediation, I'm coming to the view that we really only play a peripheral role, that the real action is between the parties. And I think a lot of mediation theory has got stuck about the mediator as the superhero that's going to come in and using their toolbox of skills and wonderful questions and insightful comments will resolve the party, the mediation for the parties. So what I've come to view is that if you look at conflict and disputes, it's really just an interaction that went wrong, didn't work. And the parties are stuck with each other like magnets, like the flow has stopped. And if you think of mediation really is another interaction that hopefully works this time. And I think if we look at it that way, and it's a transition from the stuckness into something to the future. And it's a bit like David's Gestalt, mediating in the moment. So in a way, I think, and then a lot of it comes back to us playing that, holding the space for the parties to do their work. So when we come to reflective practice, I'm not really into the toolbox of skills and the art of, the tips and tricks, as it were. I'm more into the space of being there for the parties. So that's where I'm coming. So I say the mediator is mediation, because without a mediation, without you turning up on Tuesday morning for having a mediation, nothing happens. So it actually is the venue. We just provide a venue, and 90% of the work is that they turn up. I'm afraid that we might think we're fantastic, but once they turn up, people kind of want to get things sorted out, even though they're stuck. So really, it's not really much about us. We hold the space for the venue, and something will emerge, and we keep that flow going. It's really simple. That's from my perspective and my, the way I'm seeing it.
But the only request to all of you will be that let's move away in terms of certain terminology. Let's not call them parties, because for us, there was a session in my World Mediators Conference, I think last one or the one before that, where we did mediation and terminology and mediation. And we said, this comes from the court system. Parties, opening statements, things like that. So let's change that. I call them participants. So at least in relation to that mediation, the way we look at it, structure it, maybe feels different to them also. So that's a little terminology thing. And sometimes terminology makes a difference. But now, look, thing is that, of course, these circles to be made. But the first thing is that we need to move out of the mediation world. We need to bring in people who are out there, who have that mindset, and they have, I mean, in terms of even practicing as mediators on a formal setting, they're not doing it, they're doing it in an informal setting. So we have to reach those people, and all of you are required to maybe support that, but also it'll benefit you also, because like I've been putting out in relation to a college creating a circle. Now, those college students, of course, they experience the on very simple levels, they are already doing it. And then they talk about their experiences. So other people, a kind of a culture develops within the college. But these college students are part of families and communities. So they go out there and they talk about their experiences and how maybe they've created a circle and they want to create a circle within the community or family. So now they themselves, even at the college level, if they're studying there, they're already doing it. They're helping their families resolve disputes. We have an example in one of my sessions in a college that in Delhi itself, who's created one. And the student says that he's already helped resolve 2 disputes within his family. So they're all doing it. They have the skill. It's just that we have to tell them to go practice it as much as they can, because they'll evolve also by practicing it. And that's the best way to evolve, by practicing. This training, certification, accreditation, I definitely have a problem with, but I won't get into that right now. So that way we're reaching out to many more people, and we need the multiplier effect. So your expertise to be spread out with so many more people, so they maybe bring in people to you if they feel that yes, they can't handle certain things, or the people whom they are interacting with feel they need someone who's more practicing more as a professional, because I still say it's not a profession, it's a way of life, but someone who's been there, who has that experience, they can bring that person to you. So you become a co-mediator with even a young person. So at least spread your knowledge, your expertise to so many more people, and that way you're handling so many more mediations. And I mean, of course, you're also helping families, communities, so that you're doing. So some thoughts on that. This is just a thought I have, but Josephine, what do you feel about this?
There's a lot of requests from a lot of law students, because I do volunteer a lot on international competitions. They need mentors. I totally agree to what David Mitchell just said a while ago, that, you know, he's looked into a lot of the training and of mediations. They're actually not the way mediation is done, and maybe I'm not that 100% of like Greg and David and Leonie to be able to say or comment or criticize the mediation things, but there's a lot of professional organization. David mentioned Resolution Institute. I'm active with the Australian Dispute Resolution at World Mediation, but I find it that there's not a lot of support for the younger generation who wants to learn the mediation skills. I partly disagree with you, Vikram, when you said it's not a profession. It is. It is also a way of life, because I'm very passionate. I do not intend to retire. If God gives me, or my cognitive skills, ability still will allow me to mediate conflicts and help. So yes, there is a lot of people out there in law schools and psychology departments, philosophy, that are crying out for mentorship. And I see the group that we have, the circle that we have now, are so ideal, that would give their precious time and give back. And that would be awesome. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, you actually, in a way, like I said, you're giving back also, but you're actually, in some way, developing mediation in the right direction, which is what this whole concept of the humanistic approach, the heart, soul, spirituality, healing, strengthening relationships, we need to put that out. And I don't want, I mean, I never wanted this, this concept of these institutions and all. Finally, if the mediator is mediation, similarly, for me, you people are the face of mediation. So we need faces out there. We don't want to have, in some way, these institutions and people not being, well, it is recognition of the right people. That's what I really always wanted. Yes,
I just find, sorry to, I don't want to monopolize the conversation, but it's sad because we become membership of a professional body. I'm sure David would have felt this, or some of you, but because I did the accreditation system for some organization, and I couldn't see how members are assisted or helped. And I agree with Felicity, and I'm not surprised, Marilyn and others, that created a Facebook group on the family dispute resolution, FDRP, and mediators. It's because some organizations that are big time, but they do not really help budding or even retired people like myself in some other industries that would like to now give back in mediation work or something, because there's not much out there in mentoring, buddy system, co-mediation, because this can be done. And we do volunteer. I've been doing it for 25 years with the University of Sydney. And the students appreciate a lot, because they'd like to hear from professionals who are actually doing it, but they'd like to see that side, not just the theory, not just the books, not just the role plays. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. That's exactly what the direction is. And I'm saying that these people have the skill. We just have to put them out there, and they need to just practice it and tell people in their families, in their communities, and find out about disputes. Get in there, get you people in when you have to. They have to. I mean, that's not, you're available to them, but it's not that you're a crutch for them. You have to make them walk. That's what we need to do. And they know how to walk. And we can for our life, we can say that you can't and we'll help you walk. No, they know how to walk. We just have to get them up and walking and out there practicing, evolving, learning at all points of time on their own. because it's not it's an experience. You have to experience it. It's not a theoretical concept at all. And people who enjoy those trainings or everything is because they already have it in them. They connect to the theory. So things that they have experienced or thought about comes out in good words that some people can put out there. Some people don't have words to put it out there. So if Ken is talking, saying all his words of wisdom, people connect to, is because in some way you've experienced all that, but these good words connect you with it. So it's all out there. We're not out there to teach them anything. We're out there to just bring out those people who have that mindset, tell their little circle that yes, these people exist, please value them, and they will then share the little experience that they've had. We'll create newsletters within their circles. We'll do an Australia Mediation Circle newsletter. All those experiences have to be put out there. People have to connect with the process as something happening around there. It's not a rocket science. We've not brought something out, created this box, and we're throwing it at you. You know all about it. It's just that you have to practice it. And then, of course, the other reasons of conditioning of the mind, colonization, all that, the court system, lawyers, and everything, all that we have to get over. It'll take its time. I mean, it's not going to happen immediately. And then you spoke about these mediation competitions. If you look at the structure, there's a lawyer sitting with the person in all these competitions. That's a bad starting point itself. The point is lawyers are experts in the law. Bring them in when a issue of law is required to be discussed. Bring them in. Bring in an architect when an architect is required. Bring in a civil engineer, a valuer when they are required. Please explain the process to people correctly. A lawyer doesn't have to sit into the mediation. It's just something that we have to put out there. And that's where I'm saying it's going in the wrong direction, even for the younger people. So we have to, a lot that has to happen. But yes, please, Felicity, your thoughts. I haven't asked you because we've had long conversations. That's why you've heard me so many times. So
well, I would love to start the conversation about reflective practice, and
so let's set a date for that. And then we can do it today also.
Yeah.
But
well, let's I have spent a lot of my because I come from a therapy background. Reflective practice is part and parcel of what I've always had to do. And what I find interesting, having moved into FDRP and mediation work, is that there are very different ideas about what reflective practice is and what it actually involves. And there seems to be a lack of consensus around what it is we're reflectively practicing. And so I thought that perhaps it might be helpful if we start by actually ascertaining what it is we're actually talking about when we use the term reflective practice. For me, and you know, this is a conversation. There's no right and wrong. There's just different opinions. And so maybe this is a great place to start. For me, the term reflective practice is an umbrella term that involves the retrospective post a mediation. There is also within the mediation moments where reflection is required to be able to move forward. And then there's also how we're mindful before the mediation begins. And so there are three distinct points that a retrospective reflection informs the beginning and the middle going forward as well. Does anyone else have a different idea than that, just as a starting point?
Anyone, someone?
Mine's very similar. It's very, very simple. It's reflection before, reflection during, and reflection after. And at its simplistic level, that's what we're doing. But when we talk about reflection before, it's not about the mediation that's coming. It's about the self-reflection on yourself, on who you are, what you are, where you're going. Are you in the right mode? What do you need to do that's different? What happened in the past that worked or didn't work within mediation generally that can help that my persona as I walk into that room is authentic and it's emanating trustworthiness and experience and wisdom and help are all coming in a non-verbal fashion that sets the example. And then the mediation continues. And I like what Greg is saying, go with the flow, because I tell people that I'm just here to keep the conversation going. I'm not here to tell you what to do or how to do it or whether you're right or wrong. I'm just here to keep the conversation going. So it makes a difference if it comes from that more positive. You're within the energy circle, but you're not a powerful presence. That your presence is still there and it's still important. And it's more that emanation. And one of the articles I wrote was the mediator as a conductor, that the ability to be able, with body language, with movements, with words, with almost musical tones within the way you speak, up or down or wide or whatnot, all of that is generating and in training the other people in the room to a positive world that is encouraged and also showing respect for them within that environment.
Just,
yeah, great, please.
I suppose I was a country lawyer, and I did the 3-day course at Bond Uni in 1991, and I just got work. And I started mediating, and I was sort of following the model and so on. And then in 1996, I was asked to teach it at Southern Cross Uni, and I just went in with the students, and we did role plays, and I talked about what I did. Then the dean said, no, it's all going to be external. You're going to have to write all the theory up, give it to the students. I thought, what's the theory? And I thought, I haven't read theory. What's the theory about? And I searched around and I read, all the current theories, and it didn't speak to me. And I had a psychoanalytic psychotherapy friend from Brisbane, and I was explaining it to him, and he said, oh, simple. You're Wilfred Bion, without memory, desire, and the need to understand. That's what you're doing. So my search started, and the question I've always asked, what am I doing? Why am I doing what I do? And I think I've always started with that position, is that it's the memory is the past, the desire is the future, but the most important thing, and I think this is where lawyers get stuck, is the need to understand. The more you try to understand, you can't understand it. And because lawyers prepare and want position statements, I want to understand, I want to prepare solutions. No, it's like, get it out of your head. And in a way, I think that's a sort of a way to explain being in the moment, is I don't know what the hell I'm going to do when I go in. I'm going to be surprised. I just work with the two people. I meet them, I talk to them, I get a sense of what's going on, and we get it going. And so coming back to reflective practice, I struggle. I mean, my wife is a mediator. She still works in the family law, and we debrief with each other at the end of the day. This is what happened, this is what happened. And so that's really good to have someone to talk to. And, and so that's, I suppose, reflective. But it's sort of really about, I think it's about letting go of the parties or the humans, because we take that energy on. And to me, it's about, I can't rescue you, and I've got to preserve my energy. So I see reflective practice is clearing the space for me to be able to do the next difficult matter. You know what I mean? So
it's almost like a debrief, really, Greg.
Yeah, or clearing it out. And I've done some work. We've done some work with a French mediator called Jacqueline Morinot. She calls it humanistic mediation, and it's all about cleaning the mirror. We're just a mirror, and you got to clean your mirror. And her work's very powerful. She works with people in high conflict, suicides. Work that we shudder when we do the workshop with her. It's like, my God, where are you going? But again, so we are dealing with human beings in deep trauma, in their own way. So we have to be able to not fall into it. You know what I mean? And so it's about, I'm no good to them. So maybe it's about debriefing, maybe it's about clearing that out. As to lessons, I'm not sure if after 32 years of doing it, I've got lots of heuristics of what I do, but I've got no set pattern. You know what I mean?
The way I look at it is that people with the mediator mindset are always reflecting at every moment. So you're evolving in every moment. And sometimes what happens is that some people, when they don't get an opportunity to talk about what they went through in that mediation, that experience. So sometimes talking to people helps, but it's still inner reflection from the outer self, or from the outer conversation maybe. So that's why there's space to have that conversation. But I think that reflection is, the subconscious mind is always reflecting, and it's processing things which you also don't realize, right, which is at every moment, and it's all there, which comes out in the next moment, that you, in that next moment there itself, or in the next mediation, it's all comes out there. It's sometimes what I mean, I've been talking about it for quite some time, is that we have this quantum computer inside which is computing and giving you output. So if you keep that authentic self there and let that output come out without wanting to check with the conscious calculator that you have, it's a quantum computer's output. Just let it go. So if you can be in that moment and be yourself and let things flow, I think by itself, you've done your reflection inside. The subconscious has done it. It's given you the output. And then, yes, you will also reflect and learn from the next moment. And again, that processing will happen. Again, it'll come out. That's the way I look at it. But yes, Leonie has some thoughts on it. Leonie has some thoughts.
I'd take Leonie's lovely concept that reflective practice is actually the antidote for the imposter syndrome. There's a nice challenge for you. The lack of curiosity in people these days leads them to not believe anything unless someone else says it in a convincing manner, and they build their own constructs. But it leads to the imposter syndrome. Whereas in anyone that is involved in reflective practice is going to be able to work themselves out to a large extent, and if they need help, then part of their reflection will be in making that discovery that they do need help to work in those directions. So the best mediators are the ones least likely to get imposter syndrome. Thank you, Leonie.
Well, I think, yeah, listening to, as I said when I came in, I don't know a lot about reflective practice, but as you've all been talking, I've been thinking, yeah, I think I know a little bit more than what I thought I knew about it, because it is something that is inherent as you're preparing to go into a mediation, as you're preparing for anything.
Yes.
I think that one of the things that possibly reflecting during a mediation, I'd be thinking more about keeping the process moving with the participants there, and internally probably struggling with the lawyer in me. I find that is something that, you know, I do struggle with, because that just clicks into being and switches on all by itself sometimes, and you have the need to know, and you have all these ideas going around in your head about, well, if you went straight down that road, you would get to, you know, the conclusion, but hey, we're going to spend some time while you find it and discover it all for yourself. And it is a struggle to just stay quiet sometimes at that point and let the parties go. But I think I may have read that Mediator as conductor. Was that a fairly recent thing that you wrote, David?
No, that was several years ago. It was one of my early ones when I just started. Okay. And in fact, if anyone here is interested, then just send me an email. I can send you copies. One of the articles was about reflective practice. One was about Mediator as a conductor, talking about the neuroscience as well as the practicality and the psychology of it all. But it in the end, it is very much about. I love one of Greg's articles where you leave everything behind you as you go through them, or you leave it at the door as you go into the mediation room. That's essentially part of what reflection is all about. You've got rid of all your SHIT. You are, as Vikram said, you are authentic, you're believable, you're trustworthy, you are encouraging. All those sorts of things flow through at the same time. So they pick up on those vibes. So in just sitting there, that a flow does start to happen, and we can control up to 7 different things in our minds at any one time. So we don't have to get fussed about whether we've got too much happening. We actually are train ourselves to compartmentalize those things and to give them the space, give them the time to come to their decisions. And you're just there, and it's like you're just quietly conducting a very quiet piece in the symphony. And away it goes. And most of us that are any good are doing this without knowing it. And it's like Greg said, it's tacit wisdom. It's very hard to write about it. It's easier to talk about it to someone who's interested in listening. And that's the beauty of this sort of groups like this, or in peer supervision, where you're doing the same sort of thing of sharing and debriefing. Getting rid of that stuff is another form of reflection.
You said mediator as a conductor. Now there's another analogy that you can work on, is that the mediator as a Wi-Fi router. So connecting without anything, it's not visible, it's all happening, and each device is working in terms of connectivity to the entire system because of that. And we actually, there was a session in, again, this Heart Soul Spirituality Symposium with Louis Ore, and we actually discussed this, and interesting things came out. If you can watch that, it'll be nice. And for me to even talk about the entire thing will take some time, but that was an interesting analogy that we were trying to draw there, and about devices being on 0 battery sometimes and charging those batteries and things like that. So some analogy was coming out. So Tracy has told us.
I guess I like to stay of the humanistic or human side of the mediator to conductor. To me, is the much softer and more real analogy than a mechanical thing or a Wi-Fi type thing. But yes, we all have our little metaphors. We all have our little analogies that we use for ourselves. I'm just comfortable with the
the conductor part is still a physical something. Here, there was something about the connection in relation to the energy which flows, and it's invisible, but it's still connecting people, and something like that is coming from there.
Sure, but we're listening to you now because you're starting to raise your hands and bring them into, and you're starting to, like a conductor, draw us into this topic, whereas before it's just been head and shoulders. And that's one of the things about the Zoom, that the more we can get the body involved in that picture, the more we can see, the more we can read from it, and the more they can do. So my sitting here occasionally doing or moving around is only part really of me, and it's in a sense not really being honest in doing it. It's just that I have to like slouching, and that's at the back. That creek is where I used to do a lot of my reflection. And once a year there was this little ibis that came down. You can see just on the left-hand side of my screen, there's an ibis. Once a year he would come and spend 3 days just fishing, because they up the top of the hill there was no water. Down the bottom there were little fish drilling down. So that's quite magic for me. And we've moved our house since, but I still use that picture as part of my visual reflection, or that's something that gets me into the mood and the mode to reflect.
So what Tracy was going to tell us, give us her thoughts.
When I did speak at the very start, I didn't give any indication of my experience or background. So I'll just touch on that first. So I started out in the world doing business management. And when my mum passed, I decided I don't want to do that. I want to do something different. So I ended up working in the prisons. Very random how it started, but that actually took me into the mediation unit, and that is where I developed my loves for mediation. So I primarily did restorative justice work, and then I've since done lots and lots of other training and do FDR work as well now. So so for me, reflective practice is, for me, I think it's an ongoing learning journey. And, you know, at the start of, you know, even throughout mediation, you know, we're always being mindful of safety and that sort of thing. But for me, it's always, you know, I'm always reflecting on how can I do it better? You know, what can I learn from this? You know, all throughout, because I do like to adapt. I work with a lot of people in remote communities, a lot of FIFO families, a lot of Indigenous groups and that sort of thing. So I'm always reflective of how can things work differently, or how can I use some skills or, you know, experiences from my restorative justice or working with Indigenous in the prisons, or, you know, doing this or doing that. So yeah, Felicity, I'm sorry, but I don't think you're really going to get a very much, you know, consensus as such. I think for everybody is slightly different. And yeah, it's sort of, yeah, so for me, it's really just about the learning, the journey. And it probably does, for me, reflect a bit more on the professional and personal growth and that sort of thing. But I think that is, you know, with the outcomes that we have working with our, you know, participants and families and whoever it is we are, that, you know, that's what we reflect on, you know, even though it's not us with the answers or making the decisions. But I think it is, again, it's very reflective, you know, how authentic are we in the space, how, you know, if they connect with us on, you know, a level, you know, certain level, they're going to be more open and they're going to be more comfortable in, you know, talking and that sort of thing. So yeah, you know, and that's one thing I love about this industry is we're all such different people. I did my FDR training years after, you know, about 8 years after I did my initial mediation work training, and I did it with a lot of lawyers, and every single one of them said how difficult it was for them to change their mindset, you know, to a mediation kind of concept. You know, they loved the idea, they loved, you know, what mediation was about. But, you know, after 10, 20, 30, 40 years of being a lawyer and advocating for someone and being very specific with, you know, laws and all of that, they were finding it really difficult to sort of let the participants flow and do their thing, and be the decision makers. So yeah, I just find it as, you know, always interesting. But I think it's great that we have all these different personalities in mediation, because, you know, there's a mediator for everybody. Then, you know, it's about finding someone that they can feel comfortable with, connect with, you know, to help them, support them through their journey.
You know, I think what we can say is what's the same for all of us is that when we are working with someone, we are holding space. And that is an action. That's not us doing nothing. That is us actively holding space. And that requires us to be actively mindful about what we're putting into the space. And if our time with our participants is perhaps going off the rails or not going how you may have thought, it's worth in that moment taking time to go, oh, what am I putting into this space? And is it actually that I'm putting something that's unhelpful into this space? And for me, reflective practice enables me to get to know my stuff. Because when I know my stuff, I know what's going to trigger me in the mediation or when I'm working with participants. And then I get my little red flags that, oh, this is a thing for me. And I've considered how I'm going to approach that. I've considered how I'm going to manage myself so that I can stay in the moment authentically with my participants. And for me, that is the purpose, really, of reflective practice. And, as a little sideline to that, sure, you can look at your skill set and your toolkit and you can go, oh, I could have employed this method or that method, but that's not really the heart of it. The heart of it is, how do we hold space? And in what situations do we stop holding space for our participants and inadvertently hold more attention to ourselves because of what we're engaging with in the room around us? And that post each time you're with participants, for me, enables me to go into the next one knowing a little bit more about who I am, what I bring, unconsciously and consciously, whilst I hold space. And that's down to my body language, my facial expressions, my tone, how I hold my glasses. Do we do this? Or, what is it that we're doing that might be having an impact on the space that we're not necessarily intending? And part of that for all of us as we work with people to hold space for them is something that we are considering. And before we go into the next one, right, okay, I know that, or you've done your intake or you've done your time with them and you've either agreed or not agreed to spend that time with them. But part of that decision for us as professionals is there stuff something that I know I can sit with and hold space without it unduly impacting me for my own personal life, but also that I don't inadvertently impact their conversation that they're having together, that we are there to provide space for, to facilitate, or however you want to, however you want to describe what we're actively doing in that moment. But for me, that is one of the greatest purposes of reflective practice, and why I see it as an ongoing necessity in our work, that we are continually in engagement of this process, whether we do it individually or with a peer group. I think people who find a peer group that they can meet with are amongst the luckiest, from my opinion. Being able to spend time with people and discussing these things brings out rich learning for everyone involved, but not to minimize the impact of individual work as well, and knowing who we are. And I suppose I approach with caution courses that, as a tick and flick for compliance, say, oh, you've done your 12 hours or you've done your time, tick, 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 you are now a competent reflective practitioner. I struggle with that because I don't know that at any point in time we're necessarily proficient. We're just continually on this journey of discovery. And that should be, from my perspective, how we promote reflective practice, that is in an ongoing work that isn't measured in proficiency, but is measured in our willingness to engage and our willingness to change and evolve from what we learn through our engagement would be a better measure from my perspective.
But Felicity, why not have a session with the participants and ask them what they went through, what they experienced with you, first step, then with the peer group, and maybe bring the participants into the peer group and discuss their experiences with them. Can that also happen? We'll relook the way reflective practice is practiced. We can always do that.
Well, I suppose that's what a review is, isn't it? You get your review from your participants and you find out how you went.
We'll have a conversation with them. They'll tell us exactly what. The point is that, of course, you want to learn from that experience. So best people to learn from are the people who experienced you. And then obviously the next is your telling us about your experience. So we'll do that. I think what we'll do is we'll actually go through whatever that process of reflective practice, of someone sharing their experience, what happened, what were your, whatever, I mean, whatever you want to discuss about it. And then we'll go about everyone maybe having that conversation with them, evaluating whatever needs to be done. we can do that. But the most important one, yes, Josephine, just okay, please come in, because one important part I don't want to miss out, and if someone's watching the recording, I don't want to miss out on this, that we have to create these various groups, and whoever wants to be part. So what I needed to do was take you through, because all of you don't know what groups have, what circles have already been created. I'll take you through that, but after you finish. Yes, Josephine.
I just wanted to ask everybody who would like to volunteer, does anybody use in their practice where when the private session, because I always have a private session, I follow the community justice centers process. So when the first party or whoever comes first, and both of them in their respective private session, I always ask, how is the mediation going for you? Does anybody else do that? So Tracy is nodding her head. Leonie is.
Always,
Yep.
always, because if there's issues for them, especially in the first part of mediation, sometimes they will go along, sometimes they'll just sit back a little bit, like, what's this about? I'm not sure what's going on. I don't want to say the wrong thing. So yeah, I always check in with them every session, every individual.
So that's exactly, Felicity, do you agree that you actually, like you said, we could also do that part of that reflective while in the mediation during? That's, I think, would that answer one example of how, is that part of a reflective practice? Educate me.
Well, I mean, it's how, is there a right or a wrong? That's the question. I think if that's what's comfortable, I think that's useful, because if you are starting to work with someone that's becoming quite positionalized, it might be because they're being positionalized about the mediator. It mightn't be about the interaction at all between the participants. So checking in, I think we always have to check in. But goodness, I'm not an expert, but certainly checking in, I think, is a way of checking in and being able to course correct as necessary, and it's that reflection in action, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's what that is. It's the reflection in action.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Tracy, because I do use it without fail in practically all my mediation. It helps me also address if there's anything, like you said. And this was one specific mediation that actually cost me thereafter to reflect a lot, was when I asked this lady, how is the mediation going for you? And this is where she corrected me, saying, Josephine, I felt very, very uncomfortable where I'm sitting, because this man that I'm sitting next to, because it was a group mediation, is the man who raped me when I was 13 years old. And so it's something, like you said, Tracy, things that could be addressed. And at the end, that mediation was successful. It did turn around a lot of things, but it was also being able to address it at an early stage before it was too late. Because traumatic as it is already, what she went through in the past, and then for her to go through a 3-hour mediation sitting next to a perpetrator that she hasn't forgiven yet. However, when I had time to have the private session with the other party, which was the perpetrator, which wasn't the case, it was a neighbor dispute. And this other session, or this revelation, was a new thing. So, but it was something that was delicately addresses, like what Greg was always saying, it's the parties that are important. It's their needs that why we are there. And like Tracy would say, if it could be addressed earlier before later on saying to myself, where could I have done better, or what could, because it makes me feel this is a profession that I'm not willing to give up, because I do feel I do help a lot. It's so rewarding when you see the parties so relieved. Yeah, I just wanted to share that. Sorry, guys, if I bubbled too much.
Josephine, I think, doing, what we need to remember, and what for me, as a massive part of mediation, is the participants are there because they want to be heard. They want a voice. They want to be able to express whatever's going on. And if we as mediators don't, you know, be the ears as well, it's not just the perpetrator or the ex-partner or the work colleague or anything that they want to vent to, you know, we need to sort of give them that respect and that as well. And if they're feeling heard, I find mediation is so much more successful.
Yeah.
So 100%. It's always about validating their feelings, because I quite often, you know, they say, am I wrong for feeling this way? Well, their feelings are their feelings. There's no right or wrong. So I think it is very much about them being heard.
The
second thing is that
Yes.
the next question is, what are you going to do that's different? What are you going to say that's different that will help or move the mediation further? What we now know is that the how, when, where, why, and what words actually activate the curiosity factor within working memory, and it shifts people. So you can make dramatic changes in both in the mediation and or within the private thingo by using what, when, where, why, and how questions. I call them curious questions, that will shift people. So too, moving people around, because it's been found in teaching that if you shift people when you are teaching from one room to another or from one seat to another, that also jogs up the curiosity factor, whereby you are moved out of your mindset into another working space in real time that can create quite magical changes just in the how, when, where, why, what words.
The first thing
I agree with you.
Sorry,
no, I'm finished.
Yeah.
Go,
First question I ask in the intake when I meet the parties, always intake. 90% of the success is intake. I say, what's your thought about meeting George next Tuesday?
Yep.
Silence. And it's straight into the feeling. And you'll get a response that will tell you as much as you need to know about that person. And the good thing about that is you're starting at the human level, and some will be talk for 10 minutes about it. Some will say, oh, nothing, you know, you got a benchmark there. Then halfway through the mediation in your private session, how are you going? When you ask that question, you get away from all the positions and you get back to that first question you asked, and the response will tell you a lot of what you need, whether they're still stuck there or not. And it really is all about that, the human connection. Because I think in going back to the reflective practice, the real question for you, and how much do I want to connect with these people at a human level for their sake and for my sake? And I don't think you cannot be human. We are human. And I think a lot of lawyers come from a generation where we're not human. We dehumanize the whole process, and your client is the one more likely to sue you than anyone else. So you have this barrier, and we have professional distance, you know, and I think that lawyers have tried to colonize mediation in that same dehumanized way. And that's why there's a lot of issue. We don't want the parties to get together. But I think once you get over that and you start being comfortable dealing with the human, the question is, I am going to have an effect on them, and they're going to have an effect on me. And I won't survive if I can't handle it. I won't be able to do mediation for 32 years, or Josephine, keep going. So in other words, I think if you're going to say, I'm opening myself to this experience, but it has to be in a way it doesn't crush me, because you will get affected by them. And so in a way, that's to me is the reflective practice, is how I do this without losing myself, that I can come and back up the next day and do it. And I think that's the real key. And I think if you can do it, what I think happens is you take their story in your heart, and that's part of you, but it's not dominating you. But if you cut off and you say, I'm not going human, come on, let's cut a deal, you do this. Yeah, that's mediation, but it's you know. So I think I like there's a guy, I can't remember the name of him. He wrote a paper back in the 90s called Mediating Dangerously. And he talked about that it's a dangerous profession we're doing. We're going in to people's conflict, and we bring our human self into it. And so I think, in a way, it's really the only way you can survive is just be able to be there, but still hold your space, because you're no good to them if you lose it. But one other point I just came to, I was thinking while Felicity was talking and Josephine, if I was a psychotherapist and I was reacting in the mediation, something was fair, I would be then saying, okay, this is the clue, this is the transference. You know, what is that saying? And now I don't want to go there, because that gets intellectual, you know, and I'm not a psychotherapist, I'm not a therapist. But, you know, you could argue, well, if I'm feeling that way, that's I'm picking up on something. Yeah, there's whole books written by psychotherapy about the transfer. And so while I like a lot of psychoanalytic psychotherapy, I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to be a therapist. I'm not going to try and analyze what's happened, except I know something's happening. You know, so.
You're touching there as well, aren't you, on this concept of neutrality? And we go back to our training rooms where we were trained, and what were we all taught about that? And, you know, have we moved entirely away from our teaching that we are entirely, the goal is to be entirely neutral? Is that even possible? And I know that there's a lot of discussion around that, but many of us were taught that neutrality was the goal. And is it even possible?
Yeah. I don't believe it is. I think we've got to accept that when you're not neutral, once you accept you're not neutral, then you have ethics. If you think you're neutral, you don't need ethics. And that's what a lot of lawyers are saying. I don't need ethics. Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, this is what you do. You go there, you shut up, and just bang their heads together. I don't need ethics. If you are human, you need total ethics. Everything you do has an effect. And you're responsible.
There's a whole symposium that I did on neutrality and mediation, so please watch the sessions of that. We've moved to omnipartiality now. So, please. But also, Josephine was saying, I don't know how reflective practice is done. So, one person who practices in that area, we did one session, how he conducts his reflective practice group. So if you go to YouTube, you can search Mediator Vikram and reflect. So you'll find that session. Here I'm putting it in the chat, the link to the YouTube video. But for everyone else who listens to, they can search it there. So just for an idea how someone practices in that area, so you'll find that. But important thing what I was going to do was put up the various circles which have been launched, and please tell me which circles who's going to take a lead on. So that reflective practice we've already done. So we've already put that in place, kind of thing, and everyone's taking the lead in that. But this is, of course, the World Mediation Circle. So, of course, country one, we've done Australia. So now we have to move to, this is before this, we have the World Indigenous Peoples Mediation Circle. So who's taking the lead on the Australia Indigenous Peoples Mediation Circle? Anyone here wanted to take a lead on that? Tracy, you've said you worked with the Indigenous groups. Greg, you were also saying you also worked with.
Yeah, I think Greg does as well. I don't know how much work. I know he's working with them at the moment, but
so we can create the Australia Indigenous Peoples Mediation Circle and bring in people who practice in that area. Do you think we can do that?
It's quite challenging to do that, I think, especially from outside the culture. It's really a very it's really, you have to be very careful. Yeah, it is, it's a very challenging one, and I wouldn't want to be able to say how to, I can do what I'm doing in my own experience in working in a set group, and I have a statutory role in some of the work I do, and so it's quite different. But really, I mean, it's all about human beings, and often I'm dealing with culture of a state government that's focused on outcome, and Indigenous groups are all relationship, and you know, it's that connection of, and you know, it's very much the flow, and so I wouldn't want to be leading that one, or
okay. So I will use the wrong word. I won't say leading. Be part of it. I'll just say that. Everyone's going to be part of it. Everyone will lead it. So because I did a symposium on Indigenous peoples and mediation, and there were, I think, 4 people from Australia who participated in that. So at least we'll bring those 4 people in, and of course whoever else here, or whoever else is listening to wants to be part of it. So we'll create that circle. We'll have a gathering of that. And what you just said, Greg, I mean, your experiences itself are important as to what you've done, so that other people can maybe learn from that and then share their experiences. That's what these circles are to start with. And then we go beyond that, and then we actually work with Indigenous groups and see that where we can create circles there, learn from best practices there, at the same time differentiating between mediation happening there and someone taking a decision for you happening there. So we do that. That's one. So this is one circle which we've kind of, let's say we've created it. Yes, Felicity, we've created this circle now, because Felicity is taking the lead in coordinating. Where's Felicity? Are you there
I'm
somewhere?
here.
Okay.
I'm here. Yes.
Okay.
Okay,
So we,
Vikram, I'm happy to work in the Indigenous circle space.
yes, perfect. So we've created that. We'll set up a date for that. If you can do it now, or we can do it later. We set up a date for the gathering of that, and we'll have that discussion there. Then we've done this, the Australia Reflective Practice Circle created. Everyone's interested in that. Then we have to do an Australia Commercial Mediation Circle. Anyone interested in that area here? Commercial mediation? Anyone? No hands raised. Okay. Perfect. So we'll still create it, put it up. Okay. So United Nations Sustainable Development Goals Mediation Circle, the larger circle, then individual goals to have a circle. So I did goal number 5, gender equality. So we've launched that circle. That's the global one. We'll do an Australia one. So any of the goals anyone wants to create a circle for or be part of the larger one, because mediators and mediation have an important role to achieve those goals. So let's put that out there. So anyone, Felicity, we'll have to circulate this for sure. David put his video on. I'm hoping he's saying that, yes, I want to do something here. Anything, David?
No, I'm just about to go. I've got another
Okay.
meeting coming up in a few minutes,
Okay,
so
so
I'm going
2
to have
minutes.
to.
I'll just
out
take you
of here.
through. Yeah, I'll just take you through the ones so that anyone is interested in any of these areas, please let us know. Otherwise, we'll circulate this information. So Australia Refugee Mediation Circle, anyone, whoever, please get in touch. And there is a link to a form. Please fill that form up, and I'll circulate the information as to what's happening with the circles. Then we have the Australia Organizational Mediation Circle. So what we're doing is we're going to have mediators with every organization. So Gabriela launched it. She is working as a mediator with the International Labour Organization in Geneva, but we have to do it at every level, every organization, outsourced mediator, but still build capacity within each organization, identify those people, and then we'll work with them. That I have some thoughts there. Family, Australia Family Mediation Circle. I'm sure a lot of you work in that area. Okay.
I'm happy to be part of that, and I might be able to recruit some people into that space as well.
Perfect. Great. So they've got this area. Okay, this is a game. We circulate this game, which this is a way of people experiencing mediation, conflict resolution. So this is schools, colleges, everywhere. We can circulate it. I'll send you that. Actually, it's right now the card game in Italian, which is being translated into various languages. Then we have the school and college. Anyone? School, college? Okay. And environmental, climate change, natural disaster, sustainability, whoever is interested in those areas, please. And then we have issues, any issues that you want to in relation to Australia, something which is in focus, we can create a circle for those issues. We can actually create an Israel-Palestine mediation circle also for people within Australia to have a discussion, but we also have the larger one that people can be part of. And then, of course, then they're largely country-wise. So this is one of the colleges which has created one. Similarly, with every college there, we have to create one. Yes, Josephine, every college, all the students that you have, each one is going to create a circle in their college. Then artificial intelligence, this is a major area to work with. whatever we said today, I mean, everything that is here goes into YouTube, and artificial intelligence can pick up from that. So in relation to your experiences in mediations and everything, it's going to learn from all that. Okay, so I think that's about, otherwise I think it's all country-wise. So please, whatever circles that you people want to be part of, please let me know.
So just for some clarity, what is it that you need us to do or want to do?
Look, the larger objective is to obviously create circles in every, I mean, school, college, family, organizations, community, issue-based, all that. But what we are doing is we're actually going out and asking people who are those people who have that mindset first, because without the people with the mediator mindset, it doesn't take off. And it doesn't take off with just a few. We need large numbers for so building capacity within those spaces is what is required. It's not us coming to teach you. It is not us saying we are doing the mediations. It is us creating those circles around the people who have that mindset, and that community develops. So that's what we are doing. And then, of course, sharing whatever's happening or everyone's experiences has to be put out there so that people connect with the process as something which they're familiar with. It's not something, or it's not a rocket science or some technical thing we are coming to bring to you. You know all about it. So just to make it a little more, in a way, informal and connecting people with it. So that's what we're doing. And we'll take it as it comes. Look, for me also, to say that I know what we're doing also won't be correct, because it's going to take its own direction as we go along. So even the reflective practice circle is going to take its direction as to how we're going to go about it. All the circles, everyone will bring in their expertise, and we'll grow, create circles. That's my thought on it. And each one of you will have your thought on it. So, but David, the only thing is that you've put in your email ID, but no one else can read it. So you'll have to put it again now. Just give me 1 sec, because look, I don't let people put anything in the chat, because I want you to talk to everyone. So that's something which.
Sure. That and I'm sorry, but I do have to go. But I was just saying, I've put up there my email, davmitch@tpg.com.au. I have stacks of articles. If you're interested in a topic, then I can send you some. There is one on reflective mediation. There is one on the what, where, when, why, how questioning, and so on. Happy to share with you, with our group.
Can you do me a favor, David?
Can
you put that in the chat again? Now everyone will be able to read your email ID. So can you just, because I can't copy from the chat and paste it. Zoom has some issue there, doesn't want us to copy from chats.
Under meeting chat.
Now you can do it. Now you can put it. Now everyone will be able to read it.
I've been able to read yours, and I've typed mine.
So now when you put it out, everyone will get it. So please. So everyone else, in any case, all of you are on LinkedIn. So I'm sure you connect with each other. That's one thing. But now we've done lots of connections. Mediation world has met a lot. Like I said, there were 700 videos there. We've done a lot of meetings. Now we have to reach out. We have to get the users in. We have to connect the users with the process. So that's our work. Everyone will benefit from that.
Sorry, but apologies, but
I'm going to have to go. Also,
got to go.
Vikram,
thank you very much.
Thanks very much, and nice to meet you all.
And I'll send the dates.
Keep in touch.
Yeah.
Did we hear that Greg was going to take on the reflective circle, the reflective practice circle?
I'll be part of it.
Yeah, but what we'll do is we'll fix a date and we'll send it to you. But in any case, the Australia Mediation Circle meets on the 4th Wednesday of the month. So 24th, same time. Are you people going to change your time? Is there some changing in terms of daylight saving, going, coming kind of thing?
No,
daylight savings is about to end, I think. So
whatever. It's
we're
going to
all
be
about.
It'll be 1:30.
Does this time work for everyone?
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's not going to change, is it? Because I'm going to put 1:30 p.m. India time. So please just once check in I'll also check in the time converter. But if you're saying that you're not going to change anything, then it's okay. So
it's currently 7 o'clock, isn't it? Is that?
Yeah. So do you want it as 7 o'clock Sydney time or Canberra time? Is that the correct one? So I'll shift my time accordingly if you people change your time, because I have no idea of how the Australia time changes. So let me just check.
What does everyone think? Is this time good for everybody? How we've done it tonight, which I think was 7 o'clock Canberra time, I think, is what we've said for tonight. But did that work?
Yeah.
So let me just check. Give me 1 second to check if you people 7 o'clock Canberra time is going to be.
And when daylight saving ends,
Yeah, it's going to change. It's going to change.
7th of April, we go backwards.
Yeah.
By
So
1 hour.
for me, it's going to become 2:30 p.m. from 1:30. So we'll keep your time. We'll keep 7 p.m. Canberra time.
Canberra time.
I'll change my time accordingly. So it'll become 2:30 p.m. for me.
Yes.
Perfect. So that's what the
Okay.
time is, and then what we'll do is Felicity will fix a date for the gatherings of the for the Australia Reflective Practice, Indigenous peoples, family. What else for people interested in refugee? A refugee, is that an issue in Australia?
Yeah.
Is it? Or is it not?
Well, we have a well, like every other country, we do have refugees that call Australia home. So there's
No, if there's any issue, because some countries have the issue of integration of refugees into the communities, and also mediators definitely have an important role to play there. So if that's an issue, we can.
I think something that I am just personally interested in, and wondering what other people think about this, is, you know, when we have international conflicts, as we do at the moment, and we have Australians whose families, or they may have been born in those locations where those conflicts are taking place. I'm not sure how we go as a community helping those Australians find a way of communicating with each other without involving the international conflict. And you know, it's not something I know much about, but I'm just aware.
Yeah. No, what we're doing is, what we're really, the idea of each of those things, like the Israel-Palestine Mediation Circle, first of all, is down to a school or a community or nationally, locally, wherever, we are creating these circles for everyone to discuss the various points of view. Because today what's happened is information comes through us filtered by what? Algorithms, or by media which has vested interest. That's how information comes. But what if we can actually get actual stories with actual people talking about what they think? Because the various points of view also are not out there. Everyone doesn't really access it, because once you start looking at a certain point of view, your feed will only show you that point of view, and that's the only part you will know. What about all the others? So first is, everyone should get a broader picture of each issue, and then interact with each other to understand each other. Because things, look, I mean, I'm using the word, people are poisoned. That's what happens, that the dehumanizing process, the poisoning process is going to happen. So what if we can actually in some way cut through all that, with people actually getting that safe space, which is what I call it, for them to even express their views, understand each other. That's what the idea of the mediation circles is.
Well, I have an example actually that might help actually communicate what I was trying to say. I am aware of a professional corporate working group where they work in teams, and at the time of the Russian-Ukraine situation, in that team in Australia, we had a Russian, we had a Ukrainian, and it was apparent that there was a lack of understanding of how they were to continue communicating with each other without there being this elephant in the room, and if that makes sense. And it was such a hard conversation to have, because I don't want to step on people's toes, but you know, we are a very multicultural country, and that is a wonderful thing. But with our multiculturalism, how are we assisting our many cultures that live here to operate together here, whether they're at work or whether they're in suburbs or in churches or mosques or wherever we are a very multicultural country, and knowing how to speak with one another, particularly if we have family elsewhere that are involved in conflict, there doesn't seem to be much conversation about how to do that well. I'm not even having this conversation well. I'm tripping over myself, because I'm trying so hard to, not offend anybody.
Look, I'll tell you, Felicity, we did that Israel-Palestine Mediation Circle gathering. So there was a mediator from Israel who was part of that. And she was saying, I mean, she was in a worse situation than you because you were just having a conversation about it. She was an Israeli mediator and we had Palestinians in that. And she said, I was shaking before I came in here. But the space that was created was such that they could share their thoughts. So it's all out there. It's all recorded. Yeah, it's all recorded. It's out there.
Yes, I was there for that one. Yeah.
So it's not difficult. It's just the point is that whom we are bringing into that conversation, because what's going to happen is that's the selective part, because there will always be people who want to disrupt good conversations. There are people who are going to bring in vested interests. So we have to be very sure that this is not an all-inclusive community. We want good human beings. We don't want supremacists of any kind, which is color, nationality, language, qualification, wealth, anything. You don't want supremacists of any kind. So filter those people out. And then if you don't have those people and people who have the mediator mindset or the peacemaker mindset or the participants, as I call them, you will have good conversations. So don't worry about, you don't have to worry about this at all, having that conversation at all.
Well, it is about having constructive conversations, isn't it? And it's about, in the example that I gave, how wonderful it would have been if their team leader had the confidence and the skill set to actually be able to help that team, despite the events, come to a place where there could be a discussion and the working relationship could continue.
Felicity, that's what no, but this is what the idea behind that organizational mediation circle is, that you identify those people. Just because a person is your team leader doesn't mean that the person has that mindset. Of course, we want in the future mediators to be leaders. Yes, we want that, but maybe that's not true today because there are other reasons for people to be leaders, be it nationally in national politics or in organizations that team leaders. So we are spreading that outsourced mediator, who is the mediator for that organization, does that job, asks people that question, brings those people out. And once you have the right people, good conversations, objective conversations will happen.
That's the goal.
Yeah. So Felicity, now we have to fix the time for various circles, Australia ones.
Yes.
When are we going to do that?
I need to go, guys. I'm sorry.
Let's ask Josephine has to go. Josephine has to go. And
I have to go.
Leonie also has to go. Any of the circles that you are part of, Leonie? Anything else?
Not at this stage.
Okay. We'll circulate the time then if you want to come in for those gatherings.
I will.
Perfect. So Felicity has your contact details also. Other than, you have a contact details, Felicity. Please fill that form.
I can contact you. Yes, I can contact you through the FTRP peer group. Yeah, and my LinkedIn is through there as well. I'm more
Right. Or it's Leonie J. Hansen at bigpond.com.
Perfect. If you can, Leonie, if you find time, just click that link on my website. Join World Mediation Circle. You put that those details, and then we'll send you an email as to what's
beautiful.
Perfect.
Okay. Need to go now.
Great.
Thanks,
Bye.
heaps.
Bye, Leonie.
Thanks,
Thank you for coming.
Bye.
Perfect. So Felicity, while we're recording this, can we fix dates for the gatherings for the other circles?
Sure. So are we the Reflective Practice Circle?
Yeah. Australia Mediation Circle, we know that it's on the 4th Wednesday of the month.
That's right.
So we know that's 24th April at 7 p.m. Canberra time. So that's fixed. Beyond that, you decide whatever you feel is a good date for. How much time do you want to give for the people for the information to reach people? Do you think 15 days is good enough or 20 days?
Yeah. Well, I was thinking if Wednesday night works for people, we could perhaps do a Wednesday night and a fortnight for the reflective
Perfect. So
practice.
basically, we're looking at either the 10th or the 17th.
Sorry, let's get my calendar up. So the 24th is the next Australian. Yeah, should we say the 17th, because then that
17th.
gives us
Now, only thing is, by the
time.
17th, you would have changed your time. So for me, it'll be 2:30 again. Let me just check. I always like to check this because
so 7 PM Canberra time.
7 p.m. You keep it at 7 p.m. Canberra time. I'll just check the date here. When do you change your time? What date?
Yeah, it's early April.
Okay, so basically, okay, it'll be 2:30.
I don't change my clock because I'm in Queensland.
Okay.
it's everyone down south that changes their clock. It's early April.
Perfect. So
I think it's the
2:30.
7th.
Now it'll be 7 p.m. Canberra time, or whatever
Yeah.
the situation be, and it'll be
Yes.
the Australia Reflective Practice Circle. And then the other ones, we can keep more time for that if you want. So so Indigenous peoples, I felt, was an important one for Australia.
Yes.
So how much time do you want to give people for that?
That's a tricky one, as they were saying. Well, let's do it after the next Australian time, perhaps.
Perfect. So we go into May. We go into May then, you're saying?
Okay, yeah.
We're going to May. So basically, which means 1st May, maybe people might not be working. Do you think do you have a Labor Day holiday or something? Do people the concept of that? Then we can do 8th of May.
The 8th of May might work.
But you people are, I mean, is there a concept? Is us Wednesdays all right, or is Saturdays better, or how does it work?
Possibly Wednesday. I mean, we can see what people find as we move along. But Wednesdays, it's still part of the working week. It's the middle of the week. It tends to be a time when people are happy to get together for these sorts of meetings. But obviously, that's just my opinion. So we'll have to change that as we learn more.
So we'll do that. Let's keep it of the 8th of May at the same time, and Australia Indigenous peoples. We can obviously do 2 also. We can do Indigenous and refugee if you want, but let's just keep it separate. I think much better.
Separate. I think separate. So did we say the 8th of May?
8th of May, 7 p.m. Canberra time.
And that's the First Nations, Indigenous?
Australia Indigenous Peoples Mediation Circle. So that we'll send the word out to everyone who's in that area, working in that area, and they can invite people. Because like I said, it's all about bringing in people who have that mindset. That's all it is all about. Things will happen after that. So we have to send the message out beyond, of course, through the mediation world, but beyond the mediation world. Then we, so at least, so if this dates are done, then I can shut the recording. Date's done. Any other date to be fixed? No.
Should we just start with those 3 for now?
Perfect.
Do you think?
Perfect.
Yeah.
So I'll stop the recording here, and thank you very much, Felicity, for
Thank you, Vikram.
taking the lead. 2nd, putting the word out, coordinating everything. Lots of work on that to happen. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Vikram.
What I'll do is, let me stop the recording.